Tackle HD Lure Kits. 100% made in Missouri. Available now at TackleHD.com. It's time for another Tackle HD Fishing Report. Today we check in with Jack Uxa at Lake of the Ozarks.
What's up, everybody? It's Jack Uxa here with your Lake of the Ozarks Fishing Report for Tackle HD. We've had some up and down weather, but for the most part, we've had some pretty decent weather here lately. In fact, man, today it feels like it's March or something. I mean, it's another beautiful day here. Upper 50s. I think we're going to get into the 60s here before too long. It's January. You can't ask for more than that. I was on the water last night, had a guide trip, and man, we had 2 limits of crappie. Caught a lot of other shorts that were just kind of fun to throw back and plant some seeds for next year, basically. And took home 2 limits. Pretty good. I mean, we've had a few years ago, we had a big spawn, okay? And those fish, it took a while for them to grow up, but they're here now. They're keepers. All those little babies have grown up. I'm catching them. Man, it seems like everybody's catching crappie right now. I mean, it's been really good. We were fishing the Four Corners area yesterday, put in at Lynn Creek, fished around like the lower part of the Niangua for a little bit, worked our way up towards the Hurricane Deck kind of area. Just had a good bite. We started off a little on the deep side, and I've been catching them deep, and it seemed like we were catching too many small fish, okay? And when you're catching small fish in an area, first off, that means you're probably going to have to leave, okay? Obviously, that's one thing. But it tells you that the bigger fish are at a different depth, and I've seen that before. And I knew I was fishing too deep, and it took me a minute to adjust. Eventually, the guy I was with, man, he pointed out some spots, and they were on. It was just a good trip. I mean, they were biting right from the get-go. We threw back a bunch. This is just a little Tackle HD, little baby shad. Monkey milk. I've been leaning on this color for most of the winter. It's been my best color. Not to say the other colors aren't working, because I really haven't experimented too much. Black and chartreuse was working good last night also. Water's still on the clear side. The water level is down about 3 feet from normal, but it's January, so that's pretty much what you can expect. We were catching a lot of fish on in and around docks. That's a big thing. If you could side scan, most boats nowadays have good, nice side scanning abilities. You could, there's a lot of docks here. You got to find which ones are holding the most fish, and that's where you're going to, obviously spend your time picking apart those docks. And yesterday we did do some dock shooting, but it's not like you had to. We also caught some fish on the sides. In fact, as the sun was going down, we started about noon, and it gets dark about 5 this time of year. We were eventually catching some fish like up on the bank in 5 feet of water with a little bit of brush. Kind of close to the dock, but not on the dock. So, like I said, they were shallower than what they have been. And in fact, if you go down to the lower end of the lake, say the Toll Bridge down to the dam, Bagnell Dam, or if you go up the Gravois end, you'll see a lot of fish that are just roaming around. That you kind of need side imaging plus live scope for, which a lot of people have nowadays too. Live scope's a big deal for crappie fishing. I was fishing a bass tournament just a couple days ago, and we had a limit of crappie on jerk baits too. I'll talk about bass here in a second, but I want to finish up with the crappie first. That lower end, I think, is a little bit better for crappie. I think they're a little bit bigger and a little bit easier to catch. But that doesn't mean that every day they're necessarily going to be active, because those fish that are roaming around a lot, they're not really holding on any structure. They're literally roaming. So when they're roaming, sometimes they want to feed and sometimes they don't, versus a brush pile fish or a dock fish, when they have some structure to hold on to, it seems like they're a little bit more cooperative and they're not as spooky. Those roamers, you got to be careful. Your trolling motor, you don't want the trolling motor just be put on spot lock, because sometimes that spot lock will spin around and it'll blow that water towards those fish and it'll spook them. So you got to be careful about that. You want to stay off of them a little bit. it happens to me. It happens to everybody where you get up too close on them, and or what'll happen is you reel in one fish. Next thing you know, there's other fish around your boat, and they just don't bite that good. So you want to stay 25, 30 feet away from them, and then cast to them. That's the best. 16th ounce jig has been the main player for me. There has been some other days where I've had to go deep in like 30 feet of water, and then I'm using a little heavier jig, but that's not really the normal. It just kind of depends on the day. We had a day not too long ago that was really sunny and calm and warm. We were catching them on a bluff, 25, 30 feet down, straight down below the boat. Obviously, there's some brush down there, something to hold in them. It's a kind of a wintertime spot I've caught some fish at in the past. And so, that stuff is there too. Even though it's not really something I want to do, it's something that some days that's just what they want, and that's going to work the best. And at that point, you could be right over top of them because they're in 30 feet of water, and there's a little bit of brush, and they're not going to be very spooky then. If they're in that 5 to 15 and they're just roaming, that's when they're going to be pretty spooky. But overall, crappie fishing has been great. Don't come down here in April, when everybody else is down here crappie fishing. Come down now, because it's great. Everybody's catching crappie. We're fortunate this winter to have some very mild weather. Take advantage of that if you can. I know a lot of you people are going to be, coming from Iowa and Wisconsin and different places, and it's hard to know what to do with travel and everything with weather. It's beautiful today, but Thursday we were talking about some snow again. So it's But anyways, I'm going to switch gears here. I'm going to talk a little bit about bass fishing. Just fished a tournament on Saturday. We had about 11 keepers. It was one of the Bass and Bob Winter Challenge tournaments. It does not allow A-rigs. I kind of went into that tournament saying, hey, that's fine. We're going to go throw a jerkbait. I haven't really, I've been throwing an A-rig a lot lately, and A-rigs, I was kind of bummed that we couldn't throw them, but, we got into a swing of, we got into some messes of fish, and we caught a lot of fish. I mean, we had, 30 plus bass. And, the water temperature is just not that cold. We depending on where you're at in the lake, yesterday we were seeing a lot of upper 30s, like 39. And if you go down towards Bagnell Dam, it'll get a little bit warmer. It was low 40s, like 42, 43. So it's not like we were really going that slow with our jerk baits. We were moving along pretty quick. We had some wind. It was a cooler day. And when I say cooler, I mean like low 40s. But with wind and with clouds, it was still very comfortable. I mean, neither one of us were cold all day. But we wore several layers and just had a great bite, man. We had big fish at the tournament. It was a 6-pounder, caught on jerkbait. Man, we caught a lot of fish on jerkbait in general. So I've been throwing a lot of A-rigs. That's, if I was going to go out fishing, this is some of the Tackle HD swimmers. These are the 4-inch too, guys. Sometimes I'll drop down to those 3.5 inch size. Excuse me. And that's fine, great. That's probably the standard, but, like I said, they've been biting lately. They've really turned on. So, we've got some of these big bass. It seems like we've got two groups of bass right now. We've got a lot of bass that are like, 14 to 16 inches. Probably had a good spawn a few years ago. And they're growing up, and they're a lot of fun, and they're great. They're not going to win you a lot of tournaments, though. So we fill our limit with those guys, and then, you try to catch some of the bigger ones, because all of a sudden you'll catch, a 16-incher, and then you'll catch a 5-pounder or something really big. And so, some of the tournaments allow A-rigs, some of them don't. Some people don't like throwing the A-rigs. They get hung up a lot. They're very frustrating to throw. But I've grown accustomed to liking these things. They're pretty nice. This is the time of year you really need to, throw them if you can throw them, guys. Don't be all worked up about them. I mean, they're just they're a pain in the butt to throw, I know, and they get hung up a lot. But man, they get some big bites, and this is the time of year for it. I mean, there's a lot of shad that are real deep in the lake right now, and I'm talking like 30 plus feet. And those fish are kind of hard to reach down there. We did catch a couple of our fish the other day, just throwing a single swim bait out there with a 1/4 ounce head, letting it go down to the bottom, slowly reeling it along the bottom. We did catch a couple keepers like that. They were not fish that we eventually called them out with the jerk bait. The jerk bait was just kind of like the better deal. And it's a classic wintertime bait for us. I mean, I've thrown a few different ones. This is a fiddlesticks. This is a 4.5-inch size. This is the 5.5-inch size. I know you guys aren't going to see them, got plastic worms on there. It's a pretty big difference there, guys. And I tell you, these fiddlesticks, they are really loud, okay? I'm not going to throw these things if it's real calm and sunny. I'm only going to throw them when you got a lot of wind or you got some stain in the water. This is another one that I've getting hung up on my carpet. This is one that's a white one here, guys, and you can see how I put a little bit of orange on the belly. There's some, and this is also one, you can see that little hole right there. Sometimes I'll drill these things out, and I'll insert a little bit of foam in there to make them silent. Just once again, kind of depending on situations. I really like the loud rattles at times, especially when the fish are active. Let's face it, this is, water temperature is not really that cold in my opinion yet. And so they're pretty active. I've been throwing the ones with rattles more. But there are times where, you got to have those silent ones, or at least ones that aren't as loud. And so that's what I've been doing. Once again, you kind of experiment with weighting them too. Sometimes I'll wrap lead around the hooks to get them to get down a little bit deeper. These generally are relatively shallow running baits, and so these fiddlesticks. And the idea is that they'll come up and eat them. Well, some days they don't really want to come up. The fish, particularly on this lake, because it is such a deep lake. You got to get them down to them, okay? And it's easy to do. First off, these things suspend great. So adding a little bit of weight will really make a difference to these things. I generally fish them on light line, and what I mean by that is 8-pound test to 10-pound test. Sometimes I'll use fluorocarbon. That does, it is nice. It does make a difference. Do you need fluorocarbon? No, you don't really need it right now, but this is a good color too, guys. Hopefully it's showing up good on the camera. This is a color that I'm going to use when we've got some stained water. And this is kind of like just something that is just real natural. I'll kind of throw this all the time. And then they also have a Pro Blue, which is like, for your sunnier days and a little bit clearer water. These things cast great too, guys. I tell you what, I don't know if you'll be able to see this here. You see all those weights inside? Those are the weight transfer system. There's 4 big balls in there, and that's part of the reason why it casts so good. Particularly this time of year when it seems like we have a lot of wind this time of year, and jerk baits, to cut through that wind on a cast, especially if you're doing it for hours and hours, it can be a little challenging. That's why some jerk baits throw better than others. For years we all used the Smithwick Rattle and Rogue. It was a great bait, but it was a pain in the butt to cast. And in fact, they still work, and if I'm going to fish one now, I usually fish it on a spinning rod just because it's easier. But I've also been using a Berkeley Stunna. This has been a good one too. A little purple back. This is once again a clear water bait. You see how transparent it is. One thing that I've been throwing some of lately is a Ned rig. It's a great wintertime bait, guys. This is the 3.5-inch little Helgramite on a small 1/8-ounce jig head here, the little weed guard. I tell you what, I really haven't been diving into these baits, but they are getting a ton of bites right now. I haven't been taking out a lot of kids lately, but if I'm going to take out any beginner fishermen or anybody out there, this bait is getting bit. It's getting a lot of action right now. I've been kind of swinging for the fences a little bit because the bite's turned on. But just a few weeks ago, a bite was tougher. And, that's when you kind of rely on more of your finesse tactics. But in general, I'm always going to have those things tied on in the wintertime. Small baits, for whatever reason, when it gets cold, you're going to have some days where they really dominate and you catch a lot of fish. But in general, we've had a good bite. I'm going to fish those more on the bottom, obviously. if I'm getting too many small fish, I'll probably go away from them. But if I'm just looking to go out and, have a fun day, don't be afraid to use some finesse tactics in the wintertime. Water temperature, like I said, it's low, but if you're not catching fish, you better be moving because they're biting somewhere. Now, where they're biting is kind of the big thing, okay? The back of the coves, the first creek channel, coming out is a big deal. I can't say that's everything, though, because, I've caught fish in the middle of the coves, and I've caught fish towards the mouth of the coves. I'm not going to say there's not fish on the main lake, because there probably is. I just haven't fished it. Follow the wind. Particularly, that's a big deal if you're jerkbait fishing and kind of A-rig fishing. Keep an eye open for shad. If you see shad in the area, first off, if I'm questioning myself, like, should I fish in this area or should I not fish in this area? A lot of times I'll use a shad to kind of help me influence my decision making. Yes, we are seeing shad here. Same thing with your live scope. I'm not really using my live scope to play connect the dots and do what I call force feed the fish to feed. When you see the bass and you put your lure right where the bass is and then twitch it. That's what I call force feeding. I haven't really been having to do that. I've been pretty much moving and working my lures a little faster than that because they've been moving. They've been cooperating for us. Now, in a few more weeks, when the water temperature gets a little colder and maybe the fish go deeper, maybe you gotta play those video games a little bit more. Right now, I've just been using that forward-facing sonar to tell us where the active ones are, show me where there's some brush in the area, then I kind of cast in that direction kind of thing. But I haven't had to slow down to the point where you actually really got to, connect the dots. But in general, this is a good time of year to hire a guide. I've got a lot of flexibility. Yesterday we fished an area of the lake I probably wouldn't have chosen to fish. But I wanted to take this one gentleman out. He's a really nice guy. And I wanted to fish that part of the lake because it's close for him. I could do those kind of things this time of year, versus in the spring, summer, and fall. I don't have that kind of availability. I don't have that much time. This is the time if you're looking for a fishing guide and you want me to fish a particular part of the lake, give me a call. My phone number is 573-434-2570. Check me out on the webs, fishinglake.theozarks.com. That's about it. Take advantage of this nice weather while we got it, because it could be snowing here in a couple weeks from now, and boat ramps and everything get really kind of sketchy if you get some snow. And, the lake can freeze. We've seen it several times in the last few years. So, take advantage of it while you can. Tight lines, everyone.